Hi everyone, it's Martin from Garden Gnome Software Support, also known as Hopki on the forums. We'll be accompanied by Karen at the end with the Q&As. As always, just want to jump into the housekeeping, which is this little screen you can see in front of us. At some point, you obviously might want to ask a question in the window that you've got. Click on the Q&A and type all your questions in. Because of certain delays, the idea is that if you can put your questions in before I finish, when I finish and introduce Karen then can ask those questions. At that point, we will stop asking or taking questions. But as always, you can always email into support or the forum or Facebook. Okay, so with that said, let's get rid of that. And what we will be doing today is this project. Let's just open it up. Now this is all about maps. Now I've spread this over two webinars because it was just going to be a quick one for maps, and then people started asking questions and it got a little bit longer and deeper, and I thought, okay, we're really going to need to put this over a couple. But anyway, this is what we're going to be doing. I've got some some really low resolution images of a walk around a house, which is good for you guys to download. And the idea is that we got a little button down here that can show and hide a floor plan. All right, you can select which floor you want, so it's the first floor, ground floor. I've put in a drop down menu to help navigate round. I haven't put any hotspots in here, but the idea is that one of the questions we were asked is, can it auto track where you were? So if I select the ground floor, we click on the living room, it's still on the ground floor. If I then go into bedroom 2, the map tracks where we were. You get the little radar beams. You can actually manually change all this, and if you then go to a panorama that's, say, outside of the building, the floor plan should automatically hide, and we get this auto hide warning. So you can turn the floor plan on and off, but when you turn it on and get the auto hide, is because you're out of a node that's not showing it, and when we're back in, you see it will come back in again. And then right at the end, I want to sort of look at some modifiers we can use. Now we use modifiers for the compass to show which direction we're looking in and how to set that up. But if you have a look in the top right hand corner, there's this radar beam, and this one actually uses a couple more modifiers that reacts to field of view and zoom, and also the pan and tilt. So we'll be looking at that. So if you wanted to add like a radar beam instead of this little black dot, then again at the end and when we're finished, not only will there be the recording, but you'll be able to download the whole project file as well. Okay, so with all of that said, let's move that off screen and get that out the way, and let's start. So what I'm going to do then is, to make my life easier, because this project will use tags. Now what I've done is put all of my panoramas into their own subfolders. Okay, now the reason for that is that if I now open Pano 2 VR, okay, done, I'm now going to drag in the folders. So that's all the ground floor panos, that's all the first floor panos, and that's all the outside panos. All right, so that's all done. Okay, now what that means is if I now go to the user data, you'll see that all the outside panos, well, that outside panos tagged outside. We've got the tag of first floor and entrance. So basically, as you drag the nodes into Pano 2 VR, it generates a tag from the folder name, which saves you having to go through and tag all the panos later on. All right, so that's a nice little time-saving tip. Right, the other thing is what I want to do here is just set up a default view. So I'm going to spin that around, right button click, set default view. Okay, then I'm going to go back to the properties panel. Okay, so this is all my nodes in. All right, so what I also want to show you with the tags is we can change colors. So I'm going to right button click, assign a color. So orange for the ground floor. I'm going to assign a color, blue for the first, and I'm going to assign just a green. That just gives me a visual representation, and it's easier to spot. Not only that, I can use the filter. So if I want to work with all the ground floor panos, I can click that, I only get the ground floor. I can close that filter and then change to first and outside. So it makes working with nodes a lot quicker. Now, I've actually built this project to be scalable. In other words, I'm only going to be using 2 floor plans, but the way I'm constructing it will lend itself that you can add as many floor plans as you wish. Now, this particular project isn't using the tour map. We're just using the skin and adding floor plans to the skin. The tour map and everything else it can do is next week's webinar. This is just purely skin work. Okay, so let's go back in then and let's do that. So let's add a skin, or add an HTML5 output. Now what I want to do is I'm going to click create the output, which is then going to ask me to save Pano2VR. Now the thing you have to remember is Pano2VR will try and save the project file to the first folder that you've dragged in, because it thinks you've got all your file, your images there. I'll save the project file to that. Of course, I don't want to do that. I want to save it to the main project. So I'm coming back one, and I'm just going to say, just change the name of this to House Tour. There we go. Oh, let's get rid of that space. Here we go. So I'm now saving my project file, and I'm just going to generate all the images. Now I said I've on purposely reduced the file sizes of these images, hence why they're looking a bit low res. And also, so here we go, there's the Pano, which I'll just close that. So the other thing I did as well is when I was remapping these, I saved all my data. So like all the panoramas have all the EXIF data and XMP data already in here, so it's got, you know, the descriptions and everything else. Obviously your nodes may not have this, so you would obviously populate the user data, but mine's already done. Again, that's just a time saving exercise for the webinar. Right, okay, so with that done, I'm now going to open up the skin, and I'm now going to add my assets, my floor plans and everything else. So what I've got is some drawings here. Now I did these in Photoshop, so they're not accurate, they're not great, but they will suffice for today. All right, so that's my floor plans, and this is going to be a button. So let's just call this levels, and this will end up being a way I'm selecting the first and ground floor floor plans. All right, so this one is the ground floor, so let's just type that in. All right, and this one is going to be the first floor. Okay, so they're my 2 panos. What I'm going to do is select these 2, hold down the command key on the Mac, control on the PC, so I'll select both of those, and I'm just going to set the XY position to 0, 0 and group them together. Now what I'm going to do is select a container, and I'm going to wrap them around wrap a container around them so I can keep them constrained together, and we're just going to call this floor plans. Here we go. So we're now starting to have some sensible naming conventions in the skin. Now I'm going to want these floor plans to be over to the right hand side of my window. So I don't know if you guys remember, but all we do is just set the anchor point to the top right, and I'm going to set the position now to 0 pixels, or actually I'm going to set it to 10 from the right and 10 down. I think that should be a nice little number. Okay, right, so that's basically my floor plans into the skin. I'll just set the levels button or buttons. You'll see what I've done here. Basically it's a shape I've pulled out of Photoshop. It's one of Photoshop's shape tool things, and I exported it as an SVG and brought it into Pano2VR. I'm now going to make that a child of the floor plans folder as well. So if I move this the floor plans or hide them, everything you see on the screen will hide and move with it. Okay, so my next task then is to actually bring in the nodes. Okay, so what I'm going to do is hide everything that I don't need to see. I can't hide the floor plans container, because if I do, it hides everything, because obviously my ground floor is a child element of the floor plan element. So I'm going to select that because I want this, and I'm going to bring back Pano 2 VR. Now on the Mac, if I open up the skin, all right, and I select the tour browser, it hides the skin. Okay, on the PC it doesn't. So on the Mac, what I do is undock the tour browser. Now I can open up the skin, and now I can now click and drag all the nodes out of the tour browser into Pano 2 VR. Now I'm going to do this, and it's going to show you a little message. All right, so let's just select the ground floor. I'm going to drag that in, drop it in, and I'm going to see this. You need to define a marker template with the element ID marker template, all one word. All right, so if we go to the components toolbox, I am going to look for a radar beam with, or map pin with radar beam, double click and add it to the skin. All right, and here it is. Now I want to pull this apart and just show you what's going on in here. Basically, it's a node marker. This is what a node marker looks like. But this one, when it's added, we've changed its name to marker template. And when you do that, it takes on this new persona. It turns into some super template, marker template. And basically, if we expand it, it's got a child element, which is the text box. That text box is going to pick up $HUT, which is user data title. And also what it's going to do is, if we have a look at the properties of the marker template, you'll see over here that I've got clone as normal, and I've selected this black ring, or rather it has. So this is a component that's already packaged with Pano 2 VR. And then to clone as active, the marker active, which is this ring with the black dot. Now this ring with the black dot has got something special going on. If I select it and we scroll down the properties, you'll see that we've got a modifier set. All right, now you probably don't have too much to do with modifiers on the day-to-day running with Pano 2 VR, but they're here to affect the elements with conditions from the panorama. So if you zoom, if you pan, etc., etc. So this modifier is saying rotate this element to the pan north. So once I've set north, this will always face north. Okay, so this is setting up my radar for me. It's done. That's all I needed to do. The only thing I have to do now is set up the north in the panoramas. Okay, so that's a job really should have done when we added our panoramas. So I'm going to close the skin and save that. So let's save it to the desktop and save it to the skin maps, which is our project, and we'll call this skin. All right, now we said about north, so what I need to do is redock the tour browser. If you forget how to do it, if you can just remember Command 1, or actually I think it's Option or Alt on the PC, Option on the Mac 1, that resets all of your panels. You can also go window arrangement standard. You can also mess the panels around and save whatever settings you've done. But anyway, basically window arrangement standard or Alt or stroke Command 1 puts them back. Okay, so what I need to do now is think about setting north. Now, setting north is a little bit of a I'm going to change this word setting north to heading, because these are panoramas. I'm not worried if they're geotagged. I'm not worried about if they've got any location data. I really don't need to know that. What I just need to know is that they're pointing in the right direction with relation to the floor plan. All right, so if we have a look at the skin, the floor plan is pointing upwards. This is the front door, and we're walking into the building. So therefore, there is my front door. So I'm just going to set that as being my north. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my center marker. You can probably just about see that. If I was to change to grid view, it changes it to a different color, and if I click and hold, you can see we can change colors and all sorts going on, but I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to turn grid view off, turn on the center marker, and I'm going to turn on our compass. There we go. Now this, I want it to be north. All right, so what I'm going to do here is hold down the N key on the keyboard. And now when I click and drag, you'll notice that the pano's not moving, but the compass is. So if I now move that to north. I've now set that. All right, so that will now that little black dot in the active element will point this direction, so it's now pointing the right way. Okay, now the thing is, when I shot this, I shot it with a theta V. I wasn't hanging about. I just needed a reference of what everything looked like before everything got changed in this property. All right, but I did shoot all the panoramas with the theta in the same direction. Now, this is an interesting thing to remember about the theta. It's got its compass built into the theta, but it picks up the GPS from your phone. So the GPS on this was all over the place, but the heading is correct. So what I can do is I can actually go to the user data, all right, go to north, and I can copy that throughout all the nodes. So theoretically, if I go to the hall, that's now, well, almost there, all right. And if I go to the kitchen, that's almost there. So yeah, it's you know, it's not far off, and it's close enough for me to be happy with it. All right, as I say, I don't have to have absolutely pin spot accuracy with this, but that's now my north set in all of these panoramas. Okay. Obviously, if they weren't, you can select one. If it's not quite north, again, hold down the N key, and you can adjust your heading. Okay, so that's all the headings done. Let's publish the output. All right, just to do nothing but other than to save everything. So let's just do that. Command S. Right, so that's all saved. Right, my next job then, now that I've got my headings done, is actually setting the map pins that will have this radar built in. So let's open up the skin. Now I needed to, if you remember, to undock the tour browser. As I say, the PC, with the PC you can click and drag this and it doesn't matter. On the Mac, as soon as you click this, it hides the skin, so that's why I'm doing it. I'm going to select the entrance. And what I'm going to do is going to work on the first floor first. So I'm just going to select the, sorry, not first floor, the ground floor. I'm going to select the filter. That just gives me all my ground floor panos. I'm going to select the ground floor tour map. And now I'm just going to drag and drop. Now I'm not going to be too accurate on this. I can sort that out later. As I drag them in, this marker template that bears its cape with the big S on the front is what it's doing is it's taking the data from that node when I drag it in. So it's reading the user data title and it's made a physical link to it. So if I now carry on dragging, so this is going to be the hall, this is going to be the kitchen, cloakroom, so downstairs loot, dining area, storage, you can obviously see what I'm doing, and living room. Right, once it's done, what I can do is just click on any of these and then just position them as they should be. All right, so that's getting roughly where they should be. Where's that? There. And there. All right, another little thing to note actually with this marker template is the text box has a visible logic block. And what it's going to do is I probably will put in, actually I will put in a point hotspot so we can see this, and that is if I hover over a point hotspot, this text will show. If I hover over the map, it will show. So if you hover over a point hotspot, you'll see it all. But anyway, just wanted to bring your attention to that because it's, as I say, we've put a lot of work and effort in the background of all this, and yeah, just wanted to make sure you guys knew that we did the job. Anyway, so that's the first floor. Let me select the the ground floor. Let me select the first floor. So let's again select first, do exactly the same thing, but this time around I'm going to swap the maps over. Select first as my active map. I can then click and drag landing 1 in, bedroom 2, landing 2, bedroom 1, and bathroom. And again, do exactly what I did before. I can then reposition these to where they should be. Oh, it's about there. and that's about there, and that should be about there. Right, okay, so with that said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the first floor for the minute. I'm also going to reset the filter, all right, so I can see all the nodes, and I'm going to make sure we can see the ground floor floor plan with all the hotspots. So I'm going to redock the tour browser, close and save the skin, and publish. All right, so there it is. So I'm looking up the corridor, so it's looking down, and when I rotate round, you can see the black dot is now following, because this has got that brain block. Hang on, what do we call it? Modifier. That's what it was. It's got the modifier to pan north, so it's always going to point to north. So if I spin round to the door, we've got that there. And the node marker, as I said, it's a little super component, and when you click it, it will automatically change as well. So that's basically all the hard work done for you. Now, because I haven't got hotspots everywhere, I'm going to open up the skin, and I'm just going to hide the hide template, and I'm going to add a drop down menu so I can navigate the tour with the drop down menu. All right, so let's just do that and output this. So I've now got a drop down menu. I've got all the nodes there, and here's my floor plan. Now the clever thing is as well is that the node marker talks to the floor plan. The floor plan also talks, the node marker will talk to the drop down menu. So if I select, say, the living room, you'll see that the drop down will work with that as well, and that works with all of the components. So if you add a thumbnail component and you use the floor plan, the thumbnail will move, as well as if you added the drop down, it all works together. So it's to save you guys a lot of time. Right, so that's where we are at the moment, so that's all quite good. Right, if this was going to be a single floor plan project, all right, what we could do is just say, look, I'm going to add a button. So I'm just going to add a text box, and I'm going to use that as my button. So let's just call that, give it a good name. So actually, no, let's just call it toggle floor plan. All right, going to position that bottom left and 10 pixels by 10 there. Going to give it a name. Let's just call that, not give it a name, but the actual thing it's going to display, which is show floor plan. It's actually going to start getting a bit, the text is going to be too long for the text box. So what I'm going to do is, because it's a button, under its properties, I'm going to select hand cursor. I'm going to get rid of the border because I don't want that. I'm going to set its scaling so it scales from the left to the right. Okay, so that's what I'm going to be setting up. And I'm also going to set auto size. Here we go. And the other thing is as well is that the text is going to be quite tight to the edges, so I'm going to unselect link values. I want 2 pixels top and bottom and 4 pixels either side. Okay, so if I was to save and close this, let's just see what this text box looks like, and there it is. You see I've got the hand cursor as well. Now it's not doing a great deal at the moment because I've not given it any actions. So as I said, if this was going to be a single floor plan project, all I would need to do is select the main container, all right, which says floor plans. I would select set the alpha to 0, and then I could set the actions in this button to, quite simply, on mouse click, go down to alpha. I can toggle the alpha. It's already set at 0, so I would toggle it to 1, and then we'll go back to 0. The duration of half a second or 500 milliseconds, and the element that I would want to toggle would be the floor plans container. So I just select that from the drop down menu. So with that said, close, save, publish. We should have a working floor plan. And if this, as I say, if this was a single node, single level project, you could actually quite say we're done. All right, but as I say, we've got lots to do because we got asked lots of questions, and some of them is, you know, obviously 2 floors and switching and blah blah blah. Anyway, right, so that was how you would do it if you had a single, nice and quick. I mean, I've taken my time to explain everything, but as you can see, if you just had a single, you know, if it was just an apartment, 5 minutes, job done. All right, so that's that. But this is a little bit more complicated than that. So what I'm going to do is go to my button, so toggle floor plan button. I'm going to get rid of its action, he says, down there, and I'm going to set the floor plan. I'm going to keep that at alpha 0 for the minute, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a couple of variables, because what variables will do is when I change a variable, I can then get that to interact with other things in the project. Okay, so what I mean by that is if I select an area of the canvas and double click in a variable. Now I use a quite common naming convention, so I'm going to use viz, doesn't have to be, you can call it anything you like, and I'm going to say viz floor plan, and that is going to be a boolean, which is a true false, and I want that to be false because I want whatever it is to be hidden, so the floor plans to be hidden to start with. I'm going to add another variable, and I'm going to call this viz underscore, and I'm going to say levels. All right, now I'm going to want this to be a number, and this is where I said earlier, I don't know if you caught what I said, but when I said this is scalable, you can add as many as you want. So my first floor plan is going to be, also ground floor will be 0, ground 0, fair enough, then the first will be 1, and if you had more you could stack them all in here and we'll be just giving them more numbers. So that's why this is scalable. Okay, right, so with that said then, I've got my 2 variables in there. So under the floor plans, all right, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say when the variable viz floor plan equals true, set the alpha to 1, and I want it to fade in, so I'm going to add the transition, and I'm going to add 0.5, so it fades in quite quickly. All right, okay, so that's that. So if I not going to do a live preview yet because I need the button to change the variable. So that would be mouse click, set variable value, viz floor plan. Now the operation, I can either set it to be either equals true or equals false, but I want it to toggle. So I'm going to use the not operation. All right, so in layman's terms, if it's not true, make it true. If it's not false, make it false. Just think of it like that. No more complicated than that is a toggle. All right, so that's nice and simple. So if we open up the preview now and click floor plan, we can see we can toggle it. There you go. So that does exactly what it should do. Right, the other thing I can do with this as well is not only just toggle the floor plan, but I might want to sort of slide it in a bit. So let's open up this logic block that we did for the alpha, copy it, cancel it, go to position. So I'm going to set its position to -200 pixels, so it's off screen. Now it's off screen, but I still want to work with it, so I'm going to go to view and show off screen or off canvas elements. So here I can now see the floor plan. This yellow represents the side of the skin. All right, so what I want to do now is go to the position logic block, paste. So when floor plan equals true, set that back to 10 pixels, and again it's set to the transition for ½ a second. So let's see what this looks like. So this is what I mean about using variables. So that one variable, I'm only clicking one action to change a variable in this button, but it's now affecting the alpha, because don't forget this is actually sticking out further than the floor plan. So when it slides to one side, it's actually still here, but it's now alpha 0 and it's not an active element. So I'm changing alphas and positions just with that one variable. Okay, right. What I want to do now is do the same thing for the floors. All right, so I've got the 2 floor plans. We can see we've got all our node markers there. But what I want to do is say, right, the ground floor, all right, I'm going to set that to alpha 0, but I'm going to say when the vis level equals 0, all right, so when the variable vis level is 0, set the ground floor plan to alpha 1 with a transition time again of 0.5. I like my 0.5s. 1 second's too long. 0.5 is cool. Right, so we say that's okay. All right, and I can again copy this, select the next one, and do exactly the same. All right, so I'm going to set that to 0. But this time round, when I paste it, it's going to be 1, because when it's 1, I want the first floor to be visible. Okay, cool. Right, I'm going to bring these back in now, because what I want to do now is set up the buttons to change these floor plans. So I'm going to use a text box. So let's just call this ground floor. All right. Let's set its size. It's I know the house is 50 pixels wide, and I'm going to have the height of 18 pixels. So that's it should be 18. Here we go. And what I'm going to do with this, because it's going to be a button to select the levels, I'm going to make it so it has the hand cursor. I'm going to get rid of the border. I don't want that, and I'm going to change its color to black, but I'm going to alpha it out to 100, so it's translucent, so it's not completely clear, but it's not solid either. Okay, all right, so that's that. And then I'm going to change the text. Now what we said, this is going to be the ground floor one, so I'm just going to call this G, and I'm going to set the text color to white, and that's that. Now what I'm going to do is select this. I'm going to do a keyboard shortcut, so it's Control C for the PC, Command C on the Mac, and then Control V or Command V on the Mac again to copy it. So I've got 2 of these. This one, I'm actually going to rename this to first floor. All right, and that's my ground floor. I'm now going to make these child elements of the levels icon we got here. All right, so that's that. And because it's now a child element, the anchoring is now relative to that parent element, which is this house shape. So if I set the anchor point to bottom middle, so 0 will line it up, 0 puts it at the bottom. Cool. Now this is our ground floor. This is the first floor one, so I just need obviously to change the text for it displays first. All right, and again I'm going to set that to 0 so it lines it up, and I think this time round, I think it's if I remember rightly, -18, no, 18 perhaps. Here we go, so that's 18. Okay, so that's my 2 buttons. All right, now I need these buttons to do something. What I need them to do is change that variable. So if I select the ground floor text box, which is my ground floor button, that is going to have the action of mouse click, set variable value. Now this time around, I do want it to equal something, so I'm going to vis levels, because it's a number, and I want that to be 0. Click OK. I'm now going to use the keyboard to copy that action, select the first floor, copy and the keyboard to paste that action. Of course, what I need to do now is change the value to 1. So I've now got these 2 buttons, he says, so I can show the floor plan, and that's not working. Right, okay, so easy fixed. Right, so basically what I've got here then is just make sure that the first floor on the alpha, that's all working. So on the first floor, that needs to set the variable, so vis levels, ground floor, vis levels, that'll be 0, and the ground floor, that needs to be vis levels equals 0. Okay, so that should be functioning. So let's have a look. Awesome. And we have an issue, Houston. Right, okay, so let's see if we can debug this then. Right, so here's our buttons. So it's the ground floor. Now when I click this, I need to change the levels to equal 0. All right, so viz levels number, oh, did I spell it right? Let's have a look. Which wouldn't be the first time. So viz levels equal 0, that's fine. On the first floor, mouse click set, so viz levels equals 1. So that is actually correct. All right, so that's actually correct. This is all showing. Okay, so let's just save and publish and see what we've got. So that's here. Right, okay, I think I know what's going on, he says. Right, what we've got then is the alpha. So viz levels equals 1, alpha 1. All right, and this one, that should be alpha 1 as well. So that's actually right. Okay. Let me have a think. Sorry about this, peoples. I'm just having a bit of a brain meltdown at the moment. Right, so levels, that's all working. And as always, this was working really well before. So first floor. Oh, hang on. Button. And let me think. Yeah, no, that's so when I click that, this is right. Okay, so let's think about this logically. Right, so click in the skin. I've got two variables. I've got the floor plan is true false and the levels are numbers. The number is set to 0. So the ground floor has the call, if viz levels equals 0, it should be an alpha 1 and show, which it does do. And when it changed that to an alpha 1, it hides. So the culprit is this first floor. So the first floor, when this equals 1, it should change to an alpha 1. All right, so let's have a look at the first floor button. Mouse click, set variable value viz 1. Okay, so struggling here to find out why that's not working. I see Thomas is typing. Perhaps he spotted something I've done. Let's have a look. Right, okay, here it is. I'm changing the alpha, but I didn't spot the visibility. Okay, right. Oh, panic over. Right, here we go. See, as much as rehearsing as I do, it still goes Pete Tog when I get it wrong. Right, so first floor, ground floor, and here we go. We've got that working. Right, it was purely because, as you probably saw in the skin, I'm actually using the alpha to hide and show, but I deselected this because obviously when we went to the single node or the single level, I deselected that. Right, okay, so there's my mistake. Right, moving forward then, because we're using these variables to change levels, we can also use them to interact with these text boxes. So as an example, what I'm going to do is add a logic block here. So this is the first floor, and I'm going to say that when the variable levels equals 1, I'm going to change this to black, which it is, but I'm going to set the alpha channel to 200, because don't forget we set these to 100. I'm going to copy this, click OK, and I'm going to do the exact same thing here. So I'm going to select the background color logic block, paste, but this time round set the value to 0. Okay, so that's that. And what we should get, let's have a look, is when we select the different levels, let's put the floor plan in, we're now getting a darkening so we know which ones we've selected. Okay, and it's all working and all linked. The other thing I did want to show you was the hotspot. So let's deselect the compass, deselect the crosshair. I'm just going to create one little hotspot into here. All right, set the view up, which is right, because what I wanted to show was this mouse over. So if I open up the floor plan, we mouse over the point hotspot, you can see this reaction as well, so we can either, so we actually know which hotspot we're clicking. All right, so if we whiz it back round, we can come round. Okay, so that's quite cool. Right, okay, so we've set the buttons up, we've set the levels up. What we need to do now is get the floor plans to track us. So if I open it up, as you'll see, if I open up the floor plan, I'm on the ground floor. If I select, say, bedroom 1, you'll notice that the marker template's disappeared, and you'll see it when I go to the first floor. Ideally, what I want is the floor plan to track me. Okay, now we do this easy enough, he says. If you select the floor plan container, I'm going to give it a couple of actions. And I'm actually going to give it very similar actions, and it's going to be on no changed, all right, set variable value, and the floor plan levels equals 0. All right, I'm going to copy this and paste it, and on this one it's going to be set to 1. So this is a bit odd, because as we do a no change, so that's the trigger, both of these actions are going to try and compete to set this variable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an action filter. All right, and I'm going to say in the action filter, because this is the to 0, so this is my ground floor one, I'm going to say only do this when the tag contains ground. All right, and this one will be the same. So again, what I could have done is action filter, click copy, okay, open up the action filter, click paste, but this time round just change this to first. Right, oh, let's change that. First, okay, right, so bear with me now. Right, we've now got this action, these two actions. So on no change, when the tag on these panos equals ground, we will change the map, or we change this variable to 0, which will show the ground floor map. If we then use the drop down menu and change to a first floor pano, first will be the tag, so this second action will change it to 1. So that's me talking about it. Let's see it in action. Okay, so I'm going to show the floor plan. There it is, first floor. I'm going to use the drop down menu, and let's go to bedroom 2. Boom, floor plan now changes with me. I can manually select and go wherever I want. All right, but it will follow me. All right, so that's pretty cool. Right, okay, I've got one other task. Well, say one other task. The problem is there is an outside panorama, the back garden. If I click it, the map is still here. None of the node markers or marker templates are active, but the map is still there. So that's a bit nasty. I don't want that to happen. What I want to do is this map to auto hide. So again, what I can do, if we go back to the skin, go to the floor plans, and I'm going to say show the floor plan, right, when the map is true, and if the tag does not contain outside. So if we're on the ground floor or the first floor, those do not contain outside, so the map will be seen. If I then go to the outside, the map will hide. Let's have a look. Now I've not done all of the logic blocks. I just did the alpha. All right, so what I'm going to do is right button click, copy, cancel, go to the position one as well, right button click, paste. That's now got the same deal. So now what happens is when we show the floor plan and we'll go to the outside, not only will it hide, but it will slide out like it would do anyway. Right, one other little trick we can do with this is this floor plan button. Now, one of the things I was going to do, and I completely forgot because, like, you know, you're doing a webinar and nerves take over and whatnot, would you believe? is we can use the variables to do other things. Like we can, let's have a look at, we could, for argument's sake, get rid of that, on the color, we could have said that if the variable floor plan equals true, set the background to black. We could have set the text, to when the variable floor plan equals true, we could have set that to white. So that gives us an indication that something's going on. All right. So let's have a look, and we can do that. But it still says show floor plan. But again, because we've got these variables, we can affect the text that they're displaying. So let's go back to the text. See, we've got show floor plan. I'm going to say when the variable is floor plan is true, I'm going to change that text to hide floor plan. Okay. Now, if you had your own buttons in your own graphics, you could actually just put a text box over the top of it, and you can see here we've got show floor plan. When we click it, it says hide floor plan. All right. Now I'm going to do another little trick that I want to do with this, and that is, obviously we know that we can hide the floor plan and we can show the floor plan, but if we go outside and the floor plan hides, what state is the floor plan in? Do we know? No, we don't. So I'm going to add another text expression. All right. And what this is going to be is I'm going to say when the variable floor plan equals true, right, and when the tour node tag contains outside, I'm going to change the text to say auto hidden. How cool is that? Right, now before I go any further, I want to show you this. If I click go, or OK, close, save, publish, all right, if I do this, you'll see that if I go outside, nothing's changing. There's a perfectly good reason for this, and this is a little bit to do with logic blocks, which I plan on doing once we get all the maps out the way. I want to do a deep dive into logic blocks, but here, what's happening here is we always start at the top with a logic block. So we're looking down here, and when we find a condition that's been satisfied, that's where we stop. All right, so what we're saying is the floor plan visible? Yes, stop, right? So what I need to do is move that to the top, because under normal circumstances, when we're not outside, it'll go, yeah, no, we're not gone outside, so, and it'll carry on and stop here. So it will say floor plan, hide floor plan. But when we're outside, because we've got this condition, this will then affect it. All right, so under normal circumstances, when we're not outside, we can hide and show the floor plan. But with the floor plan shown, if we now go outside and we go into the garden, boom, it's now auto hidden. So we still know that the floor plan is active. We can't see it because it's now auto hidden. But as soon as we're back to a node where we need the floor plan again, boom, it's back again. All right, so that's a nice little touch there. So, you know, the viewers can sort of know what's going on. Right, now that's pretty much it for one other thing. I know I've said this a couple of times, but one of the things I wanted to do is show you these other modifiers. Now, I've actually got in the components toolbox, I'm going to add it to the skin, is our old radar element. Now, we had this in version 4, would you believe? And it may even be earlier, I don't know. But I seem to remember, well, let's put it this way. I went to version 4 and nicked it from version 4 skin, right? So this is the radar. And how this is comprised is that the beam itself is the one with the modifiers. So what we've got is the rotate pan north, which is what we know about. But it's got these two other modifiers. So you've got the scale of it. So as you zoom in and out, it scales side to side. So that gives you what looks like the beam narrowing and getting wider. And then as you look up and down and tilt, it will do the it will scale Y. So you actually get what I mean. It scales lengthways. All right. So basically, if we use the skin preview, you can see I can rotate that. if I zoom in and out, you can see the radar beam getting wider, and if I tilt down, it does that. Now, you will have an opportunity to download this whole project, so you're going to get this skin with all these components, not components, but all these elements in the skin. But yeah, I think that sort of pretty much covers everything you can do, or most things you can do with the floor plan within the skin. As I say, next week it's all about the tour map and doing similar, but using the tour map and all the other benefits that can bring you. So with that said, I'm going to ask Karen to come in and see what questions we have. Karen.
Hi, hello.
Hello.
All right, we've got quite a few questions, and some of these questions were answered by people in the webinar, but we're going to go over them anyway, so they're recorded. But the first question, which is a good one, what's the difference between adding a floor plan like you've done here in the skin and then adding one in the tour map? Daniel's saying he sees you're doing everything in the skin editor, and he said when he made his first floor plan, he created a container with the floor plan image, added a title, text box, and everything else he did outside of the skin editor. So he was using the tour map panel the whole time. So what's the difference between this method and adding one via and working with the tour map?
Right, with the tour map, basically for something like this, it's either or. All right, it's whatever you're comfortable with. However, when we start getting into the realms of images that are geolocated and have GPS, and you can auto add them to the floor plan, then working with the tour map, because that links to maps, it can pick up all like the locations and GPS. You could actually physically do something quite complicated quite quickly. It can automatically switch between, so as you add the floor plans to the tour map, you can automatically switch. I don't want to go into too much detail because obviously this is for next week. But for me, if I was to do a simple project like this, I would probably use the skin because it's easy. All right. If I was to make a project that was going to be like this and go on to Google Street View perhaps, where GPS is needed, then most definitely it would be in the tour map. But it's an either or. But the thing is, the way I've just shown you is how we've done this since version 4. The tour map is a relatively new thing. Pano 2 VR has the ability to do things many different ways, and it's just what you're comfortable with. As I said, when we first put that floor plan in, if you're not a power user of Pano 2 VR, it doesn't matter. You just drag the nodes in, set the hotspots up, put your floor plan in with a container. Yeah, doesn't even have to be a container. And then we just added a button, and all that button did was toggle the alpha. Nothing more technical than that, and it took minutes to get to that stage and explaining it, so it took me longer to do than I would otherwise do. But as you see, the more complicated things start getting, then you start adding variables and other bits and pieces, and when it gets to where you want to start producing bigger projects and you want to use custom maps and Google Maps, then that is the tour browser, that is the tour map. So that's the big differences between those two, but hopefully you'll see that next week. Done.
Okay, so somehow things have reordered themselves up here. Oh, okay, I see how it works. People are upvoting certain questions. I've learned that. Yeah, all right. So we'll go with the next upvoted. So Andy's asking, how does this translate to mobile? So he's always seemed to have a problem with scaling those floor plans.
Well, this really, we have a look at the, let's try and tie this up. We have a look at this floor plan, this container. I mean, we could set the size and position, or I could even put a scaling in there. So I could turn around and say that you know, if the player width is less than 1024, then scale it down to, I don't know, let's do 0.8 by 0.8. So let's do that. I'm going to make sure it's, because we're scaling from this corner, I'm making sure that the scaling anchor point is on that corner. And then when we open this up, I'll open up the floor plan. Okay. Less than 1024. Not having a good day today. Let's do 0.5. Let's build that. Come over. Okay, I can't physically get that small. Oh, yes, I can. Here we go. So it's working. See that? So that's now scaled it down. I was just going too quick. I didn't see it. But you can see that that floor plan is now scaling. So, yeah, I mean, this was actually covered in the position and size webinar, but that's basically how you can do it. And because I scaled the parent container, you'll see that the buttons that select the floor plans also scale with it. All right, so yeah, I mean, and of course, if this is physically too big, then when you reach a certain size screen, hide it completely and just use a drop down menu. So again, changing the layout to match the device. All right, I think that's that one.
Okay, cool. So I think, Simon, I see you've got a few different questions in there, and I think all the questions about scaling and making things responsive, you should check out Martin's previous webinars, because a lot of those answers are
the last one. Yeah,
are there. Yeah,
Absolutely. It was the size. It was the size and position that covered all of that. It covered all of this. So yeah, just check that out.
Okay. So let's see what we've got next. What's the difference between alpha and visible?
Right. Visible is just physically hide and show something. You could have something alpha 0.5 translucent and just hide and show it. With an alpha, you can set a transition time, so you can fade something in and out. So that's really the main difference is. And yeah, so basically the alpha allows you to fade, so fade things in and out, and the visible is just hide and show, simple as.
I think this is also a simple question. Is there a simple way to set the title of a node, to set the title of the node to be come from its file name?
Yes, there is. We have, he says, let's go to...
It's a little off topic, but I think it's...
No, it's at gg.com. Nope. He says, right, okay, if we go to documentation, Palo 2 VR, and go all the way down to reference and list of placeholders, boom, what we should have is under user, no, where's file name, file paths, $n, input image name, right? So that's the placeholder, $n. Now what I could have done, rather than going to the website, but I wanted to show you how to access the website, but what I could have done was just add a text box, all right? And the text box has this wonderful little button called insert placeholder. So I delete the text that's already in there, click there, and we could, he said, node, will I do it? Node, forget where it is actually. Right, okay, forget that, it's not there, so we'll just do $n in there. And actually I don't know if it will display here. No, it's not. Okay, all right, where it works, sorry, what's going to happen is if you go to user data, all right, if I was to put in $n here, okay, so yeah, just got to remember this, so because obviously it's to do with file path, so this will read the file name of the input image, and then in the skin what I would do is add the placeholder to read the user data title. So it's piggybacked it. So the title is going to be the file input image, and this is going to read the title. So on publish, we should get entrance 1, which is the file name. So yes, you can. I just have to get me head. Remember that, yeah, it's piggybacking. So $n is the placeholder, but that has to be in the user data, and then the skin can read the user data placeholders. Right, next.
Okay, so this is a good question. Daniel, you've got some good questions. All
right, sorry. Thomas has just went, oi, should have said something else. And basically what I should have said was, let's just save this. You'll see you've got edit project user data. You could put that in there. So $n, do apologize, just bear with me. So $n in there. When I come out of that, any node that hasn't got a title, yeah, so if I delete that, it starts to automatically populate. So if you went to the master node or edit project user data and just type that in, then it automatically picks up the file names as the title for all the user data, and that's for every single node. Okay, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I forgot about that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so where were we? So Daniel's asking when node change, when you're changing a node as the trigger for something, and you use a logic block for tags or node ID, etc. Will the logic block evaluate the pan node's ID or tags or whatever you're using before the node change or after the node change?
After. It's right. after node change, because obviously it's node changed. Yeah, past tense. And if you do it before node change, then it will obviously look at it before you change the node. Yeah. Let's just again pop to the skin.
Yeah.
Have a look at the two actions. So if we have a look at the actions, we actually have a before and node changed. So after node changed, you can do something, but something can happen before. So on click or prior to the node change, something can happen. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's oh, okay, yeah. Jürgen has a question where here alpha, when you're using alpha, it's toggling between 0 and 1 to make the elements visible, but when do you use a range between 0 and 255, or when is it 0 and 1?
I don't know, so I understand that. Say that again. So this was for an alpha. So an alpha, like 255 is a solid, right? So if we're going to go for alpha,
yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So I think he's wondering, like, when do I use 1 in there, or when do I use 255?
Right. So okay. Right. Okay. I understand. Right. For us, inside the logic block, we have a 1 is a solid, and then we go down to points, right? But colors in the color picker, you'll use 0 to 255. But for in the skin, we use 1 and then go down to 0. Yeah. And the reason for that is that old Flash used to do the 0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 up to 1, where colors have always used 0 to 255. So this is just something that we've adopted. So yeah, blame Flash on that one. Does that make that clear? So basically, yeah. Skill elements, yeah, for visibility, 0 to 1, 1 being a solid, 0 being can't see it. But for colors, if you look at the color picker, that uses the alpha channel there. All right.
That's a good question. And Seba is asking, if you have a big floor plan, can you also use scroll bars? Can it scroll?
You can, but that's better for next week.
Okay, cool.
But no, you could actually put it in a scroll area. But yeah, you know.
And someone has another question, which might be something we can cover also later. But is it possible to make your floor plan the first panorama? So it's the first thing that you've seen?
Yes. Right, there's a couple of ways of doing this. You can actually have the floor plan in the skin and just show that with a white rectangle behind it. So when you open up, the panels are behind everything, but you can't see it. Or you can actually bring in a floor plan or a map or whatever as a node, because we can accept flat images as nodes. So you could actually have, I don't know, if you've done a panorama, a walk around like a big theme park, and you've got nice fancy graphics, you can actually have that come in as the first image, and it's a flat node. Then you can add hotspots to it like you would any other panorama, and those hotspots could then link to the sub tours within the in the project. So yeah, but that's another way of doing it if you've got something really. And the good thing about that is Pano 2 VR will also tile and multi-res that as well. So if it's a huge image, like trying to put a single huge image in the skin can weight it down. But if you do that as a flat node, then it'll tile it and multi-resolution it. And that's the same what the map element will do as well. So the tour map will do that. So that's another little trick for next week. So, all right.
Okay, we're almost done. And there's, I think, actually, you might have already even mentioned this. So Simon wanted to know what the quality difference between floor plans, using floor plans in the skin as opposed to putting them in the tour map.
You can put much larger images in the tour map, and depending if you're using a simple or not floor plan, it can tile it and multi-resolution it, so you can get deep zoom, similar to single resolution and multi-resolution panoramas. It gives you the ability to zoom. So if you've got sharp big images, you can do that. The other little trick as well is if you've got floor plans like this, like I've got here. Now, obviously, we've made these the same pixel size for the display, or rather for the skin. But what you could do is introduce them into the skin twice the size. All right. And what happens is if you select a ping, you've got this reset size by 2. So as an example, if you wanted a button 32 pixels big, and you wanted it to be a PNG, and you can't make SVGs, and you want it to be really crisp and sharp for a double pixel density display like an iPhone Retina, then you would bring that image in as 64 pixels square, then click resize by 2, so it makes it 32 pixels. So you see 32 pixel button, it looks like a 32 pixel button, but in reality it has the double pixel density to be nice and sharp on a high resolution display. So yeah, there's little tricks that you can do here for that. But that's the whole idea of this reset size by 2 is to bring in slightly larger images. Click this, get it down to the size that you want to use in the skin, but you'll have all that data for the higher resolution displays as and when it's needed. Right, I think that's that one. Any more?
Okay. Yeah, we just have just 2 more questions that we can quickly answer. Someone had already asked, where can we see past webinars? Martin, can you bring up your web browser and show them where you can see the past webinars?
Oh, I certainly can. Let's go to gnome.com. So gnome.com. Go to documentation, and it says webinars, and here are all the ones here. So it's one at the moment, there's next week's one, and these are all the past webinars. And if you click read more, you will see the video, and on some of them, when we started to add the files to them, you can also download the project files as well. So yeah, so not only can you watch the video, but you can sing along, as they say, as well. Right.
Okay, cool. And then, Jose, you can add as many floor plans as you want. Maybe you came in a little bit later, but Martin had explained the way that he built this skin is that it's scalable. So you can have unlimited number, right? You can do as many floor plans as you
absolutely.
need, right?
Absolutely. But I think if you're going to start using lots of floor plans with lots of imagery, then I would start to think about the tour map, because obviously, as I say, that's multi-res and whatnot. But no, you can add. I mean, obviously these are PNG files, and yeah, it's obviously with a PNG image it's quite low, but there is a limit that you can put in the skin. We had one customer that used the tour map and he had over 800 floor plans in the project.
Wow.
So that's 800 nodes in there. So yeah, it was it was a big project. Anyway.
Yeah, cool. So that's it. That's all the questions. It was a lot of questions.
It's all right. Thomas is actually feeding, because I didn't know this. Dave was a guy that did lots of street surveys. He was one of our customers, and it was he had 25 floors with 800 nodes in the project. So yeah, that all worked. So if that could do that, yeah, it's that's quite amusing. So yeah, okay. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I was just saying that I think that's it, and I think we're done here. So thanks a lot, Martin.
Okie dokie. Right, well, as always, thank you everybody to tuning in. Sorry about the little blip earlier. Yeah, sometimes nerves get the better of you and you just miss the obvious stuff. But yeah, Thomas spotted that, so that was just a little checkbox. But yeah, I hope you all learned something. I hope you got something out of this. There's lots of little tricks and tips in there. One of the guys from Australia asked the question, because obviously he's asleep at the moment, and that was, can we auto hide the floor plan, which is what I wanted to do. So yeah, job done. Okie dokie. Right, well, as I said, I think that sort of wraps us up, and until next week, goodbye everybody and keep safe.